have the Ayatollah of fantasy rock and roller with us today, Adam Rank. How you doing, Rank?
They look great in person, and I just can't wait to next year where we can pack it full of 25,000.
Hey, Bob, how you doing?
Hey, I'm doing great. I didn't know it was Ball Guys Day. It was being ranked. I mean, how do you lose?
This is the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast.
Hello, everybody. This is the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast, episode 148, proudly presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. Hey, we are on to week number 4. We are, what do you want to call it, butt punting week number 3, and we are ready to roll here to preview everything you need to know for your fantasy football lineups. We got your waivers. We've got some winners and losers, and of course, we've got our Thursday night football preview ahead of us. Miami heading to Cincinnati to take on the Bengals. You want wide receivers? We got them. You want Heisman Trophy winners? We got those too. We got a little bit of everything for everyone this week. But first, we have to hit the news and notes, starting with, this one's tough. This is a kind of a bittersweet one for me. Deandre Swift, he could miss multiple weeks right now because of that shoulder injury. Is it now time to consider that Deandre Swift could be our generation's, or at least the last 3 years, version of Christian McCaffrey? I mean, we always want to put a new generation title to just about everything, but is DeAndre Swift kind of turning into Christian McCaffrey here? Now, when I look at this here before you guys answer, we're talking about his left shoulder in 2019. We're talking about his right shoulder last year. Now it's back to his left shoulder this year. I mean, shoulders and running backs, Major. You're the running back guru here, and I'll tie in Dalvin Cook here, who's dealing with shoulder injury yet again. These are not good things for running backs to have.
Running back is the hardest position to play in the game. People try to give it to quarterbacks and everyone else. Running backs, you're constantly hitting. You're hitting linebackers that may outweigh you 50 pounds. You're running into those dudes trying to block them when you're not running the ball. When you're running the ball, you're getting hit by linemen, you get hit by linebackers, safeties, you're getting hit by the sideline, you're getting hit by everyone. So being a running back is one of the hardest things to do, and you're going to get hurt. And I think in-season workouts are very important for running backs. You have to stay ready. You have to lift like you're lifting in the off-season. That's like one of the secrets that most top players like Jerry Rice was one of those guys. Walter Payton was one of those guys who worked out constantly. So yeah, just playing running back, you're going to get hurt. I don't think he's McCaffrey yet, but we'll see.
It's going to be interesting there because when DeAndre Swift is in, he is one of the best in the game. I mean, he's literally, I think, RB4 or RB6 right now, PPR, and he's only been able to play like a third of the snaps. Jamal Williams is the guy there in Detroit right now because he is winning the war of attrition right now. He's staying healthy, and hey, we love Jamal Williams on the show, don't we? Is there not a better character in the National Football League than Jamal Williams? From Frozen to Mermaids to the double up. I'm not even going to go into what he did here to get a flag, but we'll talk about it a little bit later. Let's be honest. Now, we kind of brushed on Dalvin Cook. He's dealing with the shoulder injuries. He's had a history of shoulder injuries. So for me, if I'm in that position right now where I'm in looking to make some moves as far as my fantasy roster is concerned, if I have Dalvin Cook, I'm probably seeing what's out there in return for him right now because that shoulder injury now could be something bigger down the road. Now, something that is bigger right now is the 0-3 Las Vegas Raiders. I'm going to get on a rant here right away, but whatever I'm about to say, I'm sure Devonta Adams has already voiced his opinion in that in that Raiders change room right now, frustrated and angry. Since 1990, only 2.5% of the teams that have started off 0-3 have gone on to make the playoffs. No team has done it since they've expanded to 17 formats here. And I guess if you're trying to find a glimmer of hope for the Raiders, they've lost all 3 of these contests by a combined 13 points. This is after the season in which they had just won 5 overtime type games or 5 really close games. So the script has kind of flipped on them here in 2022. Now, Tara, I'm going to pass over to you here. Zach Wilson, he could be ready in week number 4. Are you ready for Zach Wilson?
No, I'm kind of terrified. And it's not even a knock on Zach Wilson. It's just that we've gotten so used to the tendencies of Joe Flacco how the wide receivers are going to be utilized, who he favors, the level of dump offs to the running backs, and you get Zach Wilson in, and it's just a completely different type of play. So you're going to have to figure out who's going to be the favorite, who's going to get the targets, how many targets are there even going to be? Are they still going to be a aggressively high volume team? Zach Wilson is somebody who also has rushing upside as well. So how much of that, running ability will take away a little bit from the running backs, targets them as well? There's so many unknowns, and we haven't seen enough of Zach Wilson consistently to really be able to say it's going to be, this player, and this player affected X, Y, Z. So it's going to take us a couple of weeks to kind of figure out what's going to happen in there. We're going to have to learn all over again what to do with these Jets players.
Yeah. I don't know what to make of Zach Wilson. I don't think he's an upgrade on Joe Flacco when it's all said and done. I mean, it's a mess. You're trying to avoid these guys each and every week. I mean, Garrett Wilson's been playing extremely well. I mean, that's really the only guy you can trust right now. Not even Breece Hall, not even Michael Carter, not even Elijah Moore. Even though Elijah Moore is breaking ankles there on patterns, he's just not getting the ball right now. Now, speaking of people who shouldn't have gotten the ball, there's two of them for me right now who shouldn't have been getting the ball at all last week, especially after they injured their back or their head in Tua Tagovailoa's case, and T. Higgins yet again. Tua Tagovailoa, we saw him, the aesthetics or whatever you want to call it there, where he hit the back of his head, stumbled around because his back was pinched apparently, or his ankle was twisted or whatever the Miami Dolphins are coming up with these days. He was able to come back in the game, but T. Higgins also somehow cleared concussion protocol last week there after suffering what we thought was another concussion, which was a concussion after he suffered a concussion in week number 1. So the NFLPA is reviewing some concussion protocols there as far as some of these players are concerned. There's some very sketchy decisions made from training staffs, let's put it that way, this week. Now, the one thing I want to talk about here real quick, and we talked about this in the offseason here, is the Pro Bowl is no more, and it's turning into a skills competition. I believe we literally said this back in the offseason, how we would fix the Pro Bowl, and it sounds like the NFL is stealing from us and taking our ideas. Okay, they probably had this already in the works, but
no, they didn't.
What do you guys think? What do you think about a skills competition week over the Pro Bowl? Major. I know you're a big fan of this because you don't want to see players get hurt.
Yeah, I want to see players get hurt, but and the game was kind of like a skills competition anyway. Like everyone was just like kind of standing around and kind of hugging each other to the ground and making sure people don't like fall too hard. So I'm with it. Like just do away with the whole weekend altogether and just make like an award show or something and get it over with. No one wants to see these quarterbacks throw at those like moving targets and who can. Actually, every year someone gets hurt running at 40, so we need to be careful with that. But other than that, I can do without it.
All right, and then before we move on to winners and losers here in week number 2, I guess, three in week number 3, let's going to go over some of these quick injuries here. Mixon, he had that ankle injury there. He looks like he's going to be good to go for Thursday Night Football. Mac Jones, on the other hand, not so much. That severe ankle sprain, it may or may not require surgery. Looking for a second opinion on that. David Montgomery, ankle, Michael Thomas, toe, are both considered day-to-day. And if you watch the Monday Night Football preview there, Lisa Salters was talking to Dak Prescott. He hasn't ruled out playing next week already there. So that's something of interest there for Dallas Cowboys fans. And then 2 big hits along the offensive line. Like things could not get any worse in Los Angeles for the Chargers. Rashawn Slater, torn bicep. He's out for the rest of the season. And then Trent Williams, high ankle sprain, 4 to 6 weeks. Those are both huge blows to both teams that are have Super Bowl aspirations, so to speak, of the 49ers and the Chargers there. Losing that left tackle on both sides, that's not good, Bob. Now, let's get into our winners and losers for week number 3, heading into week number 4. Major, who are your winners and losers for last week?
We got to give some love to Lamar Jackson. He went 18 for 218 yards, 4 TDs. That's a great game for any quarterback if we just stop there. But then he added 11 carries for 107 yards and a touchdown. Like, stop playing with this man, y'all. Like, pay him or let him go. There's plenty of teams that will love to have a quarterback and will treat him right and give him what he wants. And I'm gonna give you another one because you know what time it is. Tara, hey Tara, hi. You know what time it is? Matt, hello
What time
Matt.
is it?
Are we going to talk about Damian Harris?
It's Ramondre Stevenson. You know, my man, he came out, he did some work. You know what I mean? He had 101 total yards and a TD. He kind of paced that backfield. He was a man. I don't understand why New England keeps playing around with this kid. Like, let him play. He's like a Derrick Henry type of running back where you have to give him the ball like at least 15 times before he really starts showing you what he can do. People do not want to defenders, especially like safeties and corners. They do not want to hit a man that's 230 pounds running a 4.5 in the open field. You have to give him, you have to feed him to get your return on investment. I don't know why you drafted him if you don't want to use him. It's crazy, but yeah, those are my two. Let's say so. For the people who watched that horrible game, man. James Richard Garoppolo and Russell Carrington Wilson. Guys, what is going on? That was like the worst quarterback performance game by both quarterbacks in one game I've ever seen. Actually, I've been watching football like my whole life, and I've never seen it. I can't remember anything as bad. I remember that one quarterback that played for the Raiders, Peterson, whatever. He had a pretty bad game, but two quarterbacks just like off. It was just, I didn't understand what was going on, but Jimmy G threw for 211 yards and a touchdown, but had 2 turnovers. Russell had 184 yards, 0 touchdowns. But more important, they were just off. Like, whenever the receivers were open, they were too high, too short, too wide. And then when they did hit the receivers, it's kind of bounced off their hands. And so I think it's like a timing thing or a chemistry thing, but we really need to get this together because, just last week I tried to give Jimmy, like I said, like the team kind of looked better with him, and he just kind of reverted back to what he does. So, and Russ been begging to cook for so many years, and he looks like a sous chef. You see what I did there? Yeah, I know some cooking stuff.
Well, I'm going to put it this way. I'm going to tie into your cooking there. And it seemed like Russell Wilson was cooking chicken with NyQuil because it was literally putting me to sleep with everything that he was going on there. And then to your Lamar Jackson point, Lamar Jackson actually has more fantasy points through the first 3 weeks than any other player in NFL history has through the first 3 weeks. And this is a guy who was already an MVP once upon a time. His 12 touchdowns, passing, receiving, is more than 30 other NFL teams right now have total touchdowns. The only other team with 12 touchdowns right now is the Detroit Lions. So think about that as you will. That's how good Lamar Jackson has been. And now another player who's been fantastic these last couple of weeks there, Tara. He's one of your winners here for week number 3. Who do you got?
For week number 3, my winner is going to be Devonta Smith. And it's funny because my week 1 winner was AJ Brown with that incredibly dominating performance. And in that week, unfortunately, Devonta Smith was a big loser, having not a single catch on 4 targets, but he's been able to turn it around miraculously, and not even at the expense of AJ Brown either. He's stepping up aggressively and showcasing that he can be the 1B in this offense and not have to really suffer. Now, maybe it might be a little inconsistent moving forward when we consider defenses as we start to move along in the season, but what we're seeing out of Devonta Smith is that he is an incredibly talented receiver, and he's finally getting his chance to shine in a system that is pushing more pass volume where he didn't get a lot of that last year. And he's getting to showcase, hey guys, I'm here too. He had 8 receptions on 12 targets, 169 yards. Absolutely incredible. 1 touchdown, just a fantastic performance. So for me, he's a big winner because, a lot of people were very worried about him in that first week, and hopefully the consistency pulls through, but I'm liking what I'm seeing out of him. Fantastic. My big loser for the week, unfortunately, I'm going to have to go with Justin Jefferson as the big loser of the week. And I feel bad for him because it's not like I'm not highly concerned that this is going to be a pattern with him. He's extremely talented. In no way, shape, or form do I think this is going to head downhill for him. He'll still be that guy who is a easy, top 5 receiver. But unfortunately, what I think we're seeing is we expected a Cooper Kupp type of season from him with Kevin O'Connell transitioning over, a lot of people taking Justin Jefferson as their first overall wide receiver. We had that fantastic boom week in week 1 where a lot of that might have actually been just Green Bay and their typical die on the cross week 1 performance every single year. And now we're seeing a little bit of comeback down to reality that's happening here. And so while I'm not high-key concerned, I think he does have to be the big loser when you look at the fact that we've got Cooper Kupp, who is still being Cooper Kupp. You've got Stephon Diggs over there, who is, performing at a very high level. And then you've got Justin Jefferson, who was supposed to be this incredibly heralded guy that was going to take the league by storm. And this was going to be his big, massive breakout Cooper Kupp type of year. And we're not seeing that thus far. We didn't see this type of performance. Guys, did we get a game last year where Cooper Kupp was 3 of 6 for 14 yards? That didn't exist. So I don't think that we're going to get that level of performance out of him. I'm sure it'll be fine. He'll have a nice bounce back game, but unfortunately, he was my big loser of the week.
Yeah, I mean, that was a rough one. I mean, a lot of us have been feeling that, but the Devonte Smith, he's actually been more productive than A.J. Brown in weeks 2 and 3 so far. So back when Jalen Hurts said, hey, don't worry about it, I got you, he's got him. Let's be honest. And boy, is this not going to be a fun MVP race right now? I mean, early on, we're not even at the quarter pull. Jalen Hurts, Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen. I mean, Josh Allen literally just had his worst fantasy performance of the season, and it was still good for 28 fantasy points and 400 yards passing. I mean, this is how good these quarterbacks have been, and it's going to be one heck of a fantastic finish. Now, for me, my winners and losers, first off, I'm the winner for picking Nick Chubb over Najee Harris there last week, so yay me. I'm the big winner. Major, you're the big loser on that one. Now, the other winners for me so far has been the dynamic duo down in Duval County. Yes, that's the Duval duo of Zay Jones and Christian Kirk. Zay Jones, 10 catches, 85 yards, and a touchdown against the Chargers. Christian Kirk, 6 catches, 72 yards, and a touchdown against one of the best slot defenders in the league in Bryce Callahan. I mean, it's amazing what this team can do with a competent coach. You know what? Let's throw in James Robinson in here too, because, hey, James Robinson, for a guy who's got a brand new Achilles or whatever you want to call it, when he busted off that 50-yard run, there it looked like there was no residual effects of negativity at all. He was pulling away from dudes. I mean, that's how impressive James Robinson has been. In fact, Jacksonville in general has been a winner. I'm excited to watch these guys. I can't wait for the Eagles and Jaguars here in week number 4. That's going to be one of my games to get hyped for on the Friday Night Hype Show over on fantasypoints.com. Now, my loser of the week, guess what? It is still Austin Eckler. And I'm looking right at you, Tara. You're rolling your eyes. I said this last week. I went on there. I said he's not very good. And guess what? He was actually worse running the ball last week against the Jaguars than he was the previous week. I think he had 1.9 yards per average, less than 2 yards per carry. It's a good thing he can catch a ball. I mean, he had 5 yards on 4 carries. How bad? That's a study. Sony Michel is the better back right now. I mean, Joshua Kelly's outperforming him as a runner right now. It's a good thing, like I said, he can catch the ball because those 8 catches for 48 yards. See, I'm going to get on this here right now. One of the things I'm starting to lose my love for is PPR scoring. The guy had 4 rushing yards, and somehow he ends up with almost 10 to 12 fantasy points.
Right.
Clyde Edwards-Helaire is another guy. 0 rushing yards, like 36 receiving yards, but he had 5 catches or 6 catches, so all of a sudden he has an 8-point fantasy day. That's horrible.
No, it's not.
Yes, it's horrible. It's like, hey, congratulations, you got 36 yards, but we're going to give you 10 fantasy points.
No,
it's different. It's different, but that's different. The teams are operating in different ways. Like that's clearly, like with CEH, that's clearly the way that they want to utilize him. They're intentionally giving him less than 10 carries a game. Like that's intentional. They want to have him aggressively evolved in the pass game. So it's not a knock on CEH and that he's doing something wrong. He's playing within the confines of what that offense wants him to do. So no, I that's fine. That's what his offense wants him to do. And PPR is fantastic. I approve.
No, I'm against PPR now. I'm starting to lose that when I see these numbers get put up there by running backs. Like literally, Nick Chubb can run for like 90 yards and still have less fantasy points than Clyde Edwards-Helaire because Clyde Edwards-Helaire caught 5 catches for 36 yards. That's how bad PPR is. Now, well, that's how teams like to run it, right? Now,
can we say I was right about Eckler? I said this I remember way back. Remember I said that? I was saying this like a long time ago.
So before we go on to the next part here, Here is the all loser team, courtesy of James Coe. I'm stealing one of his tweets here, so I'm giving a little bit of a shout out here. Week 3 PPR. Justin Jefferson, Tyreek Hill, Aaron Jones, Joe Mixon, Darren Waller. You could throw in DJ Moore there in a flex. If you had these guys in your lineup, you would have had 29.9 fantasy points. If you would have had Mac Hollins in your lineup, you would have had 29.96 fantasy points. That is what week number 3 was. So we need to get on with week number 3. Let's forget about it here. And the best way to start is by previewing Thursday Night Football. And we're going to head over to the major props, the Thursday Night Football props that Major Caldwell is all in on this week. Major, what do you got for us?
Yeah, so I'll be using the Underdog app to for the player prop lines, and you can too by downloading the Underdog app using the code Fantasy Points, Fantasy PTS, and receive up to $100 match. Like you put 100, they're gonna give you 100, and you'll have 200. That's how math works. It's awesome. Each week I'll give you a couple players to look at for Thursday Night Football game. This is going to be a high scoring game between the Bengals and the Dolphins. This is going to be one of those games. The ball is going to be thrown all over the field. So you can pick the higher or the over on every one of these players. I'm going to give you one right now. I'm going to give you Jamar Chase, like higher than 81.5 receiving yards. Chase has only reached this mark once this year. He's not having that season he had last year. But last week, he broke out with 129 receiving yards. It would be easy to go. It's not going to be easy. He's going up against Xavier Howard, who's one of the best corners in the league. But keep your eyes on that game within the game. I love watching those little battles. Like was it a couple weeks ago? I told you like the two running backs had a really good battle with Montgomery and
Aaron Jones.
Aaron Jones. Yeah, thank you. Actually, I think we're a little early because I only were able to I couldn't get Miami props up yet. Let me see if it's up here yet. Give me one sec.
Yeah, I mean, this is going to be a fantastic game. As you're looking for this, if you want props, you're going to have Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle. You're going to have Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, T. Higgins, assuming that he's ready to go. I mean, while you're looking at these props, one prop that I'd be interested in is what Tyler Boyd is going to do. Whatever that is, I might be thinking about taking the over because I'm not too sure what T. Higgins, what his outlook is going into this week because, you know, he had that concussion in week 1. We're pretty confident he was concussed in week number 3. This is not a good thing for T. Higgins, and that's a big-time concern for me. He's one more hit away, again, from missing some more time. Now, Major, did you have a second to pull up some Miami Dolphins props there? Or do you want me to keep on rambling on?
Yeah, no, thanks for your ramble, but I don't – the Miami is not up for some reason yet, but, you know, I'll go with T. Higgins. I'll go with higher than 65.5 receiving yards. I like, you know, the NFLPA is kind of investigating, you know, the concussion protocol and stuff like that, but – these doctors on the sideline and coaches, they don't want to lose their job over this stuff. So if he can play, they put him in a game. I don't think they're risking it. This is not 1990. They're not, you know, being tough guys and going out there. Like everyone's pretty smart when it comes to the concussions and CTE and all that good stuff. So I think he's going to play. I think he's going to be all right. And I'm saying he's going to get over that 65.5 receiving yards.
All right, Tara, what do you got for us here as far as DFS is concerned for us heading into this contest?
So this is one of those weird games where the pricing is kind of ridiculous because lo and behold, Miami has turned out to be an offensive juggernaut. So we've got obviously multiple high-end wide receiving options, all priced significantly higher than the quarterbacks in Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Jaylen Waddle. T. Higgins, you do get a pretty decent discount on him. So it'd be interesting watching and seeing, you know, what his injury looks like leading up to this game. Again, you know, it's difficult when we got multiple receivers that are multiple players that are dealing with injuries. We've got Jaylen Waddle that's dealing with an injury, Joe Mixon, we've got T. Higgins. And again, you know, we've talked about what you want to believe about whether or not Tua's injury is which body part it's actually related to, but we've got Tua that's got the questionable tag as well. So you can take a couple of approaches with this. You can try and, you know, hedge your bets and maybe think that maybe this is an instance where it's a Thursday night game. These teams are coming off, they're going to be coming off of a short week. We've got players that are dealing with injuries. Maybe you hedge your bets and go with the healthy ones, the Jamar Chase, the Tyreek Hill, Joe Burrow. But given that there are so many expensive pieces in this entire grouping, and that you've got the quarterbacks who, oddly enough, Joe Burrow and Tua Tagovailoa, I never thought I would see the day of this. There's literally a $200 separation from them on DraftKings, which is kind of crazy. So you can approach it a few different ways, but I think an interesting, kind of maybe a contrarian way to look at it. That Miami defense has been, it's been kind of interesting. I could see where you would maybe pair that Miami defense and pair it up with Tua if he's healthy and confirmed good to go from whatever injury he may or may not be dealing with. Maybe stack that up with Tyreek Hill. Waddle is dealing with a groin injury. We know those tend to linger and make things a little bit difficult, especially for pass catchers. And then you've got some cheap options over there as well. You've got Mike Gesicki, who is a cheap, interesting option. He's not someone that I like in season-long leagues, but in DFS, there's a good value there for him. You've also got Chase Edmonds that's coming off of that big-ish game where he had touchdowns that kind of pulled him ahead. Again, as Matt would say, there wasn't really much to do on the ground, but he did have points and pull through, so that's an option that you could go. And you could also bring it back around with Jamar Chase maybe and kind of play it out that way. But really, the biggest thing for me approaching this is that there are so many high value players. You're just going to have to monitor the injuries, work around that accordingly, and then look for those value players. Maybe you go with a Samaje Perine, who is actually priced kind of high, and that might indicate something to you when you look at things like DraftKings and FanDuel and Vegas. A lot of times they kind of tell a story. They priced up Samaje Perine oddly high. So maybe they think that Joe Mixon is not going to be able to make this game, even though we're hearing things that it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of an issue. But Perine might be somebody who, provided that Mixon does play and maybe gets a little bit limited of a snap count, could have some value. You've got Tyler Boyd as well that pops up as a really good value if T. Higgins is not able to go. Hayden Hurst that could benefit from that as well. And then Mike Gesicki that I mentioned also. So this is one for me where I'm going to be aggressively monitoring the injury reports and then building based off of that.
All right, I'm just going to add a couple little things here, little tidbits of information I kind of gather here heading to this contest. Fun fact here, if you look at the three quarterbacks that were selected in 2020, Tua Tagovailoa there, Joe Burrow, and Justin Herbert, Tagovailoa actually has the best winning percentage of the three at 15-8. That 652 winning percentage is better than Herbert at 471 and Joe Burrow at 446. So that's just some little fun fact that I kind of gathered there just to prove that Tagovailoa is the best quarterback of the three. No, I'm just joking. Well, maybe we'll see where that runs first. But a couple of little other things here I thought were interesting here as I was looking at my Thursday Night Football preview that you catch on the Vipers Network channel here is the running back position. I mean, I'm not all about the running game. We know Miami doesn't have one per se, and it's very game script dependent for the most part. But if we look at what Michael Carter and Breece Hall did last week against this Bengals team, it was Breece Hall that was actually targeted 11 times, and he was able to catch 6 of those targets. So that's telling me right now that we're probably going to be expecting Chase Edmonds to be a little bit more involved as a PPR type wide receiver, even though he might not have any rushing yards to go with it. Now, the other guy here, Joe Mixon, man, was there a bigger disappointment at the running back position last week than Joe Mixon? I mean, I had him heading into that game against the Jets as my number 1 ranked running back, and he did not even come close to that last week. But hey, you know what? Better days are ahead here. I mean, we look at some of these things, 48 yards, 15 touches there, not good. But then you take a look at the yards per carry and all this other fun stuff. It was not a good day for Joe Mixon, and I'm sure he'd be the first one to tell you all that and stuff like that. But the good news, behind Austin Eckler, Joe Mixon has the second most targets amongst running backs there. And it's not like he's not had opportunities. He's had 9 carries and 2 targets in the red zone. So at some point, that's going to pay off. He's going to get those touchdowns. He hasn't had that touchdown yet. I feel that this is a good week for Joe Mixon to get it on that. Now, the wide receivers, man, this is going to be fun. I mean, you got 4 of the best, not just 4 great wide receivers, 4 of the best receivers in the game today, and Tyler Boyd, who we should not scoff at, because if anything were to ever happen to either Jamar Chase or T. Higgins, Tyler Boyd slides into top 24 wide receiver category easy. So, you know what? I love myself some Tyler Boyd. He may be one of those best price type players here, whether it's DFS or if you're looking for a sneaky flex play. I mean, he could be that guy. He's coming off a big week last week, over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown. So if a team like the Dolphins decides to do some bracket coverage or double up on Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd's going to be the one who benefits the most when it's all said and done. Now, we are going to talk about some wide receivers here because it's time for a 1v1. We got Tera Roberts stepping up here to represent. She is representing the duo of Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins. And meanwhile, I am going to represent Miami here with Tyreek Hill and Jaylen Waddle. One last thing real quick. The biggest factor, I think, heading into Thursday night on that short changeover is how much Buffalo controlled the ball last week. I mean, I don't think anyone's talking about it yet, but that Miami defense was on the field a lot last week, and we'll see how they're feeling on Thursday Night Football because we know that the Bengals can move the ball as good as any team here. Well, at least last week. The first 2 weeks, not so much. But Tera, the floor is yours to talk about Chase and Higgins.
All right, so to start off with, Major, this one is for both of us. Matt is not taking home the win. I am taking home the win for us. Let's go ahead and do
Let's
this.
get it.
Hit it.
Yes. So Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins are just flat out built different. And I thought I would bring some evidence and just, kind of do a little showcase of
Is she?
why exactly. Yeah. I
Did
thought I would just
she?
bring something in here for us to take a look at and see. Let me see if I can, you want to bring me in there? Will you allow it, Matt? Exhibit A.
Oh, look at
Exhibit
them toes.
A.
Why are we showing an incomplete pass to prove a point that he's
The refs were wrong. The refs were wrong. Built different. This is what Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins bring to the table. And let's talk about Exhibit B. Exhibit B.
Exhibit B?
We got Exhibit B. Now, this one is just stats. And I know that, Major, you're going to love this. This is the one time that stats are going to make both of us extremely happy. Let's talk about Ja'Marr Chase's rookie year. We are talking the most epic rookie season ever. 81 receptions. Ever. 81 receptions, 128 targets, 1,455 yards, 18 yards per reception, 13 touchdowns, 63% catch rate, which I know Matt may want to scoff at and say, hey, that's not a good catch rate, but only Deebo Samuel had a higher yards per target. That catch rate is more than acceptable for big play receivers, which Ja'Marr Chase is. And by the way, Deebo's catch rate was actually 63% as well. So just goes to prove a point right there. But let's break it down even more. Ja'Marr Chase. This man was 20th in receptions as a rookie, but yet somehow he was 4th in yards and 3rd in touchdowns. This man is just not human. He's not human. He is Superman. He is literally Superman. But on the opposite end, you've got T. Higgins, who is Captain America. And I'm not talking like the original Captain America. I'm talking Captain America when he got the beard and the badass attitude. That's the Captain America and Superman combo that I am talking about. Now imagine doing all of that. Ja'Marr Chase doing all of that with T. Higgins by his side, just casually snatching up almost 1,100 yards on only 14 games. Let's break down some more stats. Let's break down those stats right there. T. Higgins averaged 77.9 yards per game and was 8th overall in yards per game. We are talking about 2 top 10 receivers in yards per game. And Ja'Marr Chase was actually 5th. And guess who was 10th? Who was 10th in yards per game behind both of them? It was Tyreek Hill. He couldn't even beat out Ja'Marr or T. Higgins with Patrick Mahomes throwing to him. Jaylen Waddle was 24th. I don't know. Maybe Tua can get them there eventually. We'll have to see. Don't get me wrong. I'm not knocking Tyreek and I'm not knocking Jaylen Waddle, especially because I love Jaylen Waddle's rookie year. It was extremely impressive. And heading into the season, I had him just outside of a wide receiver 1, technically before Tyreek Hill entered the picture. And I'm also very invested in Jaylen Waddle in Dynasty, although I have to admit that I might be more invested in Jaylen Waddle in Dynasty because he was a lot easier to invest in compared to Ja'Marr Chase and T. Higgins because he's a little bit less talented, unfortunately. So while his rookie year was extremely impressive, literally anybody can beat out Devontae Parker. Literally anybody. I mean, even Jacoby Myers, Matt. Crazy, right? And I don't think we really have to talk about Tyreek Hill's rookie year because why would we? It was nothing. Case closed. That is it. Give me the W.
So
Hey, Tara hit you with that stat attack. You hear all those numbers? I got confused. She was like,
no,
yeah, like she
I
in the
thought that
strip
was
club in
I thought
Atlanta.
that was
She was throwing
cute.
them ones at you.
I thought that was cute to bring up numbers from the past
Oh,
that
he
have
said
no
it's
relevancy
cute.
in today's world. I mean, I thought it was fantastic that your video evidence was an incomplete pass and that you talked about Jamar Chase and what he once was, not last week where he had 29 receiving yards or the week before with 54 receiving yards or the fact that he had 4.8 yards per reception last week. I mean, hey, that's cute. You want to talk about what he did last year. In fact, I believe he couldn't even beat out Tyler Boyd last week. So, I mean, if you want to talk about who Tyreek Hill can't beat out and who Jaylen Waddle couldn't beat out last year, your boys, they couldn't even beat out Tyler Boyd on their own team. So we got that kind of going for us right there. But I haven't even gotten into what I'm
Hold
about
on,
to
before
speak
you
on.
go, hey, y'all going at it today. That rebuttal was good. Tara came out strong. You came back. Hey, this is like a heavyweight. Let's go,
I'm
man.
excited.
Let's go.
I'm excited to see how
Let's
he
go, Matt.
justifies how
All
3 games
I
erase
need
an
to
entire
hear-
season. I'm ready. Tell me.
All I need to hear, Major, you know what kind of dog Tyreek Hill is here. Eli Apple?
Yeah, we're looking forward to who we play? Bengals. We're looking forward to the challenge. It's gonna be fun, you know. And I can't wait to go against Eli Apple, man. I owe you, boy. I owe you. I'm here. The cheetah is here.
Oh man, here we go.
Oh, Tyreek Hill is going to the playground right now. You know what Tyreek is doing, Major. You've played some street ball there, right? You go around and you're like, oh, that's the guy I want right there.
Right,
Tyreek
right.
Hill has already singled out Eli Apple. He has already called Eli Apple's mother and said, I'm going to slap your boy this week. He's already told Eli Apple's mom, it's over right now.
That may be going too
Talk
far.
about- he already says he owes you. We're talking about a guy with a nickname Cheetah. I mean, Jaylen Waddle's got a nickname the Penguin. Higgins and Chase don't even have nicknames yet. How can you even get up behind these guys? These guys don't even have nicknames. So then you look at, you want to talk about a career numbers here. And okay, you know what? Jamar Chase, he has a chance to do this. But you want to talk about Jaylen Waddle. I'm glad you talked about how much you love him. In just 19 career games, Waddle has 123 receptions, which is the second most all time behind Odell Beckham Jr., who had 141 in his first 20 contests. Hill and Waddle were putting together one of the best seasons to date. We're talking about weeks 1, 2, 3. We're talking about current events here right now. They are averaging 3.98 and 3.34 yards per route. And as long as Tagovailoa's back doesn't flare up, this defense is going to get overcooked compared to even Skyline Chili. I mean, it is over right now. Even Skyline Chili is going to taste good to Miami Dolphins fans after they put this beat down on them. Now, both these duos, hey, they're going to be good. They're both good duels. I agree with you. This is fantastic. These are 4 of the top receivers in the game. I still think the outlier in all this is Tyler Boyd. 105-yard performance there last week on 4 catches. He's going to factor into this somehow, some way. Now, as long as, like I said, T. Higgins' concussion is under control, Tua Tagovailoa's concussion is under control, we are in for a treat here in Cincinnati when these two teams get together. But, Tara, your stats are outdated. They're not even current events anymore.
Wow.
Look at the numbers now. Look at them this year. You got 2 of the top receivers in fantasy points per game, in yardage, in targets, in receptions right now. There's nothing else. Nothing else to say. In fact, the biggest difference is Joe Burrow's got about 1.1 seconds in that pocket to make a decision on average. You can't do a whole lot in 1.1 seconds. It ain't happening. Give me Waddle and Hill for the win this week.
Quick question. What was Tyreek's line last week?
Probably more than Jamar Chase's.
I don't think it was. I think it was 2 receptions for 33 yards. Wait, like how now do you want to get? Are we talking like last week or like what's the time frame since you want to narrow it down to like a 3-game window and you want to erase
to be wrong,
the greatest? No, it's okay. You want to erase greatness because it conveniently fits within a 3-game time span. But let's make sure we knock out when they actually faces a real defense. Let's go back and talk about the stats that they had against Baltimore's absolutely obliterated secondary. So yeah,
Let's
You're right.
go.
you're right.
Chase and Higgins played the Jets. What more do you need to say? They had the Jets.
I don't
in
even
the lineup.
care. Honestly, I don't even care about Jamar Chase and Waddle and Tyreek anymore. This is the battle that I want to see. This is the battle that
Major,
we're here for.
Major, I'm not the smartest guy. I've never been accused of being an intellect by any stretch of anyone's imagination. But if Tyreek Hill had 33 yards receiving and Jamar Chase had 29 yards receiving, is 33 not greater than 29?
We're talking fantasy points here. Who scored more fantasy points?
Hey, she good.
Or do we
She's
need to use whatever special formatting you want to use? We knock it down to,
Get him.
half point
Get
per
him.
touchdown.
Yes. Get
Half
him.
point per touchdown. I'm all in for that because I'm telling you right now, Waddle and Hill, they're going to put them points up no matter how you want to look at it. And the
They just
bottom
got
line
scored
is
touchdowns.
Eli Apple ain't no Xavier Howard. You can look at across the board. The matchups are the matchups, and that's what they are. Give me Hill and Waddle. End of discussion. Victory is mine.
It's not
Kudos
yours.
to y'all. Hey,
It's
that
not
was a
yours.
hell of
He
a
had
battle,
to
guys. I love
erase
it.
an entire season.
We still
to
going.
justify.
Sure is so
He had to erase an
competitive.
entire. I just.
That's how you know, Major.
Man,
That is how you know
sorry.
you have her beaten. She's already trying to go back and get back into it.
And
She's
she's so
it's
competitive.
over.
It's so funny. And
I just
she's
feel
so
bad.
competitive.
And I love
I just feel bad. Let's
every
take it to Twitter.
second of
I'm
this.
ready.
And we haven't even gone to our mailbag. We haven't even got to our waivers. We haven't even got to our starts and sits this week. So let's get in some rapid fire here because we're at 40 minutes of the show and we've still got part 2 coming. And we're going to get ready to go here. So I'm going to skip the explain ourselves portion of the week here this week. So on to week number 4. Major, give me 2 waiver wire claims that you're looking at here this week.
Yeah, real quick. Trevor Lawrence, I was surprised when I looked him up. He's only on 50% of sleeper rosters. So go ahead and grab him up. It looked like it's starting to click for him. The game's starting to slow down a little bit. Last week he posted 28 for 262 yards, 3 TDs, but more importantly, no turnovers. Like he's had good games, but he'll like throw 3 touchdowns and throw 3 interceptions. So I think he's slowing down for him. So grab him. If you're in a dynasty league, make sure you have him. Throw him on your dynasty squad. Put him on the bench. Put him on taxi squad. Get him on your team. My second one, Laviska Shenault. He made an appearance. His first game as a Panther, he had 90 yards on 2 receptions and a TD. And that offense is struggling, so they need some kind of spark out there. So, and it looked like he can easily work his way up to be that wide receiver 2 behind DJ Moore. Shout out to what's my guy named the long.
Where you going? Robbie Anderson?
Robbie Anderson, thank you. He goes long too much. He can't be the wide receiver 2. He's more of a 3. So if Laviscus can get in there and do his thing, he's going to be that wide receiver 2. And I don't know which quarterback you want more in there right now, but we're going to stick with Baker and see what happens.
All right, Tara, what do you got for us for this week? Who are the waiver guys you're going after?
The first one for me is Zay Jones, and I don't understand why people are so averse to believing that this is realistic, that Zay Jones should be a waiver wire ad. And honestly, if you go back and you look to, and I wish I had the statistics right in front of me, but if you go back and you look at it, this is not something that's popping up out of nowhere. The back half of his last season with the Raiders, he actually came on pretty strong and was pretty good after Henry Ruggs, disappeared. But he finally stepped up, and I think it's carrying over when he gets the opportunity. He's a very talented player, and people have to kind of put the perception of the Jags out of their mind. This is not last year's Jags. This is a completely different team. It's very clear that Urban Meyer was an absolute cancer on that entire team and just destroyed the talent of every single person that is on it. As Major mentioned, Trevor Lawrence looks like a whole new man, okay? And he's throwing for enough volume to be able to not only feed Christian Kirk, who is a clear wide receiver 1 on that team and a clear top 20 receiver, a must start every week, but I truly believe that Zay Jones deserves to be rostered too, because he's asserted himself as the wide receiver 2 in this offense. Week 1, he had 6 of 9 targets for 62 yards. Week 2, he called off only 3 receptions, 23 yards. But again, that was a really weird game where the Jags, unfortunately, they kind of easily rolled on to victory with Indianapolis literally laying down without Michael Pittman. So rolling back to week 3, against the Chargers, Jones caught 10 of his 11 targets for 85 yards and a touchdown. He is worth a roster in all formats, especially PPR, Matt. My second waiver wire ad. I love referencing stuff forever. I'll mention it like 5 times throughout the show. My second waiver wire ad, again, is someone that I just want people to believe in. just believe in Greg Dortch, please. I understand he's not flashy and he is probably on a time limit. So don't think that, when I recommend Greg Dortch, don't think that I'm saying, hey, man, Greg Dortch is going to be a top 10 receiver for the rest of the season or top 20, because he's actually a top 20 receiver. Like, wrap your mind around that he is legitimately a top 20 receiver right now. And it's not just this last boom game. He has been incredibly consistent. He had a very solid week 1, a very good week 2 in which he got a touchdown. And this week 3 where he caught 9 of 10 targets for 80 yards on Sunday. He has been very reliable, and he's got a clear and defined role as long as Rondale Moore is out and DeAndre Hopkins is on suspension. And again, Rondale Moore was not close. He was not a game time decision last week. He did not practice. I think it's well within the reality that, again, he's not going to play this week. It makes sense. We think about it's a hamstring injury, so you have to take that into account. As long as he's out, I'm 100% confident in having Greg Dortch as a flex option, and he's only rostered in 14% of Yahoo leagues. If you need someone to give you points right now, this is a dude that is literally guaranteed points. Go grab him.
Yeah, another guy you got to go out there and grab right now is Romeo Dobbs. I mean, we just talked about how Zay Jones should not even be on the waivers, and yet here we are. Romeo, we're out though, Romeo. He's the guy who is catching passes from Aaron Rodgers. In fact, the last time a player caught 8 passes in a single game that was not Devontae Adams, you have to go back to 2018 when Randall Cobb did that way back in week number 1. Now, in week number 3 against Tampa Bay, Dobbs hauled in 8 passes for 73 yards and a touchdown. He was targeted on 24% of his 34 routes. So move over, Allen Lazard. There's a new wide receiver 1 in Green Bay. Now, the other guy I'm going to go out there and add, and this is more of a speculative thing because I think this Raiders team is, I don't know what it is right now, but you have to go out there and get yourself some Mac Hollins. Anytime you can go out there and get a team's number 1 wide receiver off the waivers, you have to do it, right? Okay. He's not quite the wide receiver 1, but he's producing like the wide receiver 1. He's caught 14 of 19 targets for 240 yards this season, which is 50 more yards than Devonta Adams has through 3 weeks there. And yes, Hunter Renfrow, he's going to eventually get right, but he's still dealing with that concussion that caused the fumble back in week number 2. So there's also that we have to consider. We don't know with head injuries. We don't know how long Hunter Renfrow is going to be out. Hopefully he's back there this week, but we don't know. Now, Hollins, he's made do with the best opportunity here with what we've seen him get. 8 receptions, 158 receiving yards, 1 touchdown. That's all tough to ignore. Now, I'm not going to go say there and go blow your fob bid. I mean, anything like that. No, go back, throw a nice little low ball off or throw a couple bucks towards Mac Hollins. If you have some roster space, you could do worse. Hey, there are 5 teams that have thrown for over 70% of their plays through 3 weeks. The Jets at 75%, the Commanders at 72%, the Bills at 72%, the Cardinals at 72%, and the Las Vegas Raiders, they have thrown the ball 73% of the time through 3 weeks. So you know that the Raiders want to throw that ball, even though it hasn't really been that successful for them. With that all being said, it is time for the mailbag. Tara, would you trade J.K. Dobbins and Michael Pittman for Aaron Jones?
Yes, she would. Don't get your fan car revoked.
It's not enough. So this is tough because I am 150% in on Michael Pittman Jr. and I 100% believe he is a top 10 receiver. So this truly depends on the type of receivers that you have. I think that's a fair trade. In order to get back Aaron Jones, who has a lot more upside than J.K. Dobbins, the thing to be very clear about J.K. Dobbins is that he's probably on that Saquon track from last year. He's not going to be a very usable fantasy asset over the next probably 4 weeks or so at the very least. And even then, so the offense is running aggressively through Lamar Jackson. So yeah, I'd probably make this trade, but it's tough to give up. It's tough to give up Michael Pittman Jr. I assume this is redraft and not dynasty, because that would be a no.
Yeah, I mean, I'm okay with I think I'd rather the J.K. Dobbins side with Michael Pittman over Aaron Jones. Again, I'm going to need to make sure my roster construction set up a certain way in which I could take this on, where I have maybe another running back that can fill in as an RB2 or a flex while I'm waiting for J.K. Dobbins to come back. Now, Major, man, Green Bay seems to be the thing. All 4 questions involve Packers this week. Allen Lazard or Treylon Burks rest of season?
Ooh, I like Burks for some reason. I can't even give you the reasons why, numbers wise, I just like that he is out there and he's the wide receiver one. When they do the play action pass, it's gonna go to him. So I'm just gonna go to him just off of target share.
All right. We know how I feel about this next question. So, Tara, is Romeo Dobbs, is he for real?
Yeah, he is. He is for real. No, I didn't. Granted, this is 100% based on him having the opportunity to showcase that he's for real. But you don't have that level of production. We've seen it in the offseason, and now he's gotten the chance to prove it to Aaron Rodgers. So, yes, I think it's for real. I think it'll stick.
All right, then we'll go around the horn for this to close out the show this week. Major, A.J. Dillon, Cordero Patterson, and Brandon Cooks for Travis Kelce and Romeo Dobbs. What side do you got?
I'm gonna go with that first round of guys. Romeo Dobbs is good, but I still like Christian Watson. I just think he's been hurt so far this year. We haven't had an opportunity to see him get in there. And Kelce is like 100 years old, so I'm gonna stick with the first round of kids.
All right, Tara, what do you got? A.J. Dillon, Patterson, Cooks, or Kelce and Dobbs?
Yeah, the first side. Again, A.J. Dillon does have the extreme upside if Aaron Jones were to go down. Cordero Patterson will bump in and out of between being an RB1 and not being a 1, and Brandon Cooks is going to rebound, in my opinion. So I'd rather stick it out with the first side.
You know what? I'll make this a clean sweep here. You get an RB2, you get two RB2s, you get a wide receiver 2 with wide receiver 1 upside for a tight end 1 and a wide receiver 3. I'll be generous. I'll call Dobbs a wide receiver 3. I mean, he's going to give you those weeks from time to time. So, I mean, if you have to have a serviceable tight end before you make this move. It doesn't have to be anyone great. It could be Tyler Conklin, which we'll talk about in our starts and sits here on the next show here on the Dynasty Vipers Vipercast, presented by the Fantasy Points Media Group. If you want to go from Casper to Kool-Aid, have a conversation with Tara. She'll bring a little bit more color into your face, especially if you're me. Now, we'll see you next week. Take care.